You know, there comes a moment in every human life when the noise of the world suddenly feels too loud, and the whisper of your own inner truth becomes impossible to ignore. That moment is awakening. And once you awaken, my friend, you begin to see what you could never see before. You begin to notice that not everyone around you is walking toward the light. Some are walking in circles, some in shadows, and some are simply asleep with their eyes open. And here lies the hook. Your awakening is not threatened by darkness, it is threatened by the people who fear your light. When you truly begin to grow, you realize that your environment is not just a background, it becomes one of the greatest influences shaping who you are becoming. Most people underestimate this. They believe motivation is something you find inside yourself, independent of surroundings. But the truth is far more subtle and far more powerful. Your environment either strengthens your awakening or slowly suffocates it without you even noticing. The people you allow into your space, the conversations you participate in, the energy you absorb, these things quietly construct the architecture of your mind. And if that environment is misaligned with your growth, then even the strongest motivation will begin to erode. You start to see how certain environments make you shrink. You walk into some rooms and your confidence lowers. You walk into others and your vision expands. This is not a coincidence. Human beings are deeply impressionable, even the strongest of us. A brilliant mind in the wrong environment becomes dimmed. A confused mind in the right environment becomes sharp. This is why the moment you begin to awaken, you start sensing things you couldn't sense before. Subtle emotional drains, silent tensions, hidden negativity. You feel it the way a plant feels, the difference between sunlight and shade. And suddenly, you understand that growth isn't only about what you do, it's also about what you stop tolerating. There comes a moment when you catch yourself thinking differently, wanting differently, expecting more from life. And the moment that shift happens, something remarkable unfolds. You begin to outgrow the places where your old self was comfortable. You realize that the environment that once felt like home now feels too small for your expanding awareness. This is the moment most people hesitate. They feel the pull toward growth, but they resist because their environment pressures them to remain familiar. But this hesitation is precisely where individuals lose their momentum. Growth requires courage, and courage often demands stepping out of spaces that no longer match your frequency. Think of it like this: your mind is a seed. Even the most powerful seed cannot grow in dry soil. It does not matter how much potential it carries, how much possibility lies within it. Without the right soil, without nourishment, without space to breathe, it cannot break open and rise. Your environment is that soil. The people who inspire you, challenge you, uplift you. These are the fertile conditions that allow your potential to take shape. And when you place yourself in such an environment, something magical happens. You begin evolving without being forced. Growth feels natural, almost effortless, because your surroundings are aligned with your direction. But the opposite is just as true. Stay too long among people who doubt you, environments that drain you, conversations that limit you, and you will notice your inner flame weakening. Not extinguished, just dimmed. And sometimes the most dangerous thing is not when your fire dies suddenly, but when it fades slowly, quietly, over months and years. You don't notice until one day you look in the mirror and realize you've become smaller than your dreams, quieter than your truth, and weaker than your purpose. This is why protecting your environment is not optional, it is a necessity for anyone who seeks real transformation. And here is the deeper truth. You do not evolve by force, you evolve by alignment. Motivation becomes stronger when your surroundings match your intentions. You think clearer. You move with purpose. You act with confidence. And it isn't because you suddenly became more disciplined, it's because your environment no longer pulls you backward. When you choose the right environment, you're not just choosing comfort or inspiration, you're choosing your future self. You're choosing the version of you that is waiting to emerge. And once you experience the power of being in a space that reflects your potential, you will never again settle for spaces that diminish it. Self-awareness is the moment you stop running from yourself and finally turn inward with honesty, clarity, and responsibility. Most people go through life reacting, not understanding, repeating patterns they never chose, living through emotions they never examine. But when you begin to awaken, something profound occurs. You start observing your own mind as if you are standing outside of it. And in that quiet observation, you discover the truth that changes everything. You are not controlled by your thoughts, you are shaped by the thoughts you choose to understand. This shift is where inner power is born. You begin to notice how much of your life has been automatic. You recognize familiar triggers, someone's tone, an old fear, a buried memory, and suddenly, instead of being pulled by them, you pause. That pause is the birthplace of wisdom. It is in that small, silent space where you ask yourself, why am I reacting this way? What is this emotion trying to tell me? Is this me, or is this a habit I've been carrying for years? And every time you answer with honesty, you reclaim a piece of your power. Most people never do this work because it requires facing the parts of themselves they've been avoiding. But avoidance is precisely what traps a person in repetition. Awareness is what breaks the cycle. As you grow more aware, you begin to understand your strengths without arrogance and your weaknesses without shame. You start recognizing the patterns that drain your energy and the ones that renew it. You see which beliefs push you forward and which ones built cages around your potential long ago. And the moment you see these things clearly, you cannot unsee them. You cannot pretend you are powerless, because awareness exposes the truth. You have always had the ability to choose differently. You simply weren't conscious enough to do so. This is where the real transformation happens. When you are aware, you no longer allow emotions to rule you. You learn to listen to them. Anger becomes a signal, not a reaction. Fear becomes information, not imprisonment. Sadness becomes a doorway, not a weight. And every emotion becomes a teacher. You realize that nothing inside you exists to destroy you. Everything exists to guide you. The mind you once fought becomes the mind you learn from. And this understanding gives you a quiet confidence that no external motivation can ever replace. There is a point in self-awareness where you begin to sense the subtle shifts in your own psychology. You notice when your energy changes, when your thoughts tighten, when your intuition whispers. You sense when your mind is aligned and when it's pulling you toward old habits. This sensitivity is not weakness, it is precision. It allows you to navigate your life with intention rather than impulse. And intention is what gives your motivation direction. Without awareness, motivation becomes unstable. With awareness, it becomes unstoppable. Something remarkable happens when you know yourself deeply. You stop needing validation from others. You stop chasing acceptance, approval, or permission. You become rooted, centered, grounded in your own experience. You trust your decisions because you understand the place they come from. You trust your journey because you're no longer walking blindly. And in that trust, your actions become clearer, your choices become sharper, and your path becomes more meaningful. Self-awareness does not make life easier, it makes you stronger. It doesn't remove challenges, it gives you the clarity to respond rather than collapse. And the more you observe the movement of your inner world, the more you realize that your greatest power was never outside of you. It was the power to understand yourself, redirect yourself, and elevate yourself. As your awareness expands, your life expands with it. You begin to shape your thoughts instead of being shaped by them. You break unconscious patterns that once controlled you. You choose your emotional responses instead of inheriting them. And in this transformation, you discover a truth that becomes the foundation of all growth. You cannot master your life until you begin mastering your inner world. Consistency is the quiet force that shapes every meaningful transformation. People often believe that life changes through sudden bursts of inspiration, dramatic decisions, or one powerful moment of motivation. But the truth is far more grounded and far more demanding. Real change happens in the small, repeated steps you choose every single day. It's not the intensity of your effort that creates lasting growth, it's the repetition of it. And this is where so many people fall behind. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, the perfect mindset, not realizing that progress belongs to those who show up even when everything inside them wants to stop. There is a remarkable power in doing something consistently, even when it feels insignificant. When you take small actions day after day, They begin to compound, shaping your identity, strengthening your discipline, and building a foundation that cannot be shaken by temporary emotions. Most people are controlled by how they feel in the moment, and this is why they never break through their limitations. But the moment you choose consistency over mood, you take control back from your emotions and give it to your intention. And intention, when repeated daily, becomes unstoppable. Every time you show up, even when you don't feel ready, you train your mind to understand that effort is not negotiable. You begin rewiring your habits, reshaping your inner narrative, proving to yourself that you are capable of more than your excuses once allowed. And slowly, almost quietly, a shift begins. Something inside you strengthens. Your tolerance for resistance grows. Your ability to start becomes easier. Your capacity to continue becomes natural. And without realizing it, you build momentum, a force that requires no motivation to sustain because it is powered by discipline. Consistency is not glamorous. It does not give you instant gratification. It does not offer applause or quick results. But what it does give you is something far more valuable: control over your life. It teaches you that progress is predictable when your actions are predictable. It shows you that success is not mysterious. It is built through repeated behavior. And it reminds you that talent, intelligence, and inspiration cannot compete with the individual who simply refuses to stop showing up. There will always be days when your mind is tired, when your emotions feel heavy, when the path ahead looks unclear. These are not signs to quit. They are tests to see whether your commitment is stronger than your discomfort. Consistency is forged in those difficult moments. Anyone can act when they feel inspired. Very few can act when they feel nothing at all. But the person who can move without motivation becomes the person who cannot be defeated. As you continue the practice of consistency, you begin to notice that life starts aligning differently. Opportunities appear not because you waited for them, but because you prepared for them. Your skill improves not because you rushed, but because you refined. Your confidence grows not because you avoided struggle, but because you faced it repeatedly. And each day that you honor your commitment, you build a version of yourself who others cannot recognize, but you can, because you remember the days you wanted to quit and you didn't. Consistency transforms your identity. It takes you from someone who hopes for change to someone who creates it. It shifts you from reacting to life to directing it. And with each repeated action, you become more aligned with the future you desire. You begin to trust yourself in a way you never have before, not because you are perfect, but because you are reliable. You know you will show up. You know you will continue. You know you will not abandon your path halfway. In the end, consistency becomes a quiet promise you make to yourself each day. A promise that says, I will keep moving forward, regardless of how I feel. And when you live by this promise, your life will begin to transform, not through luck or sudden leaps, but through steady, unwavering, disciplined effort that accumulates into a reality you once only imagined. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood forms of growth. People often imagine it as a moment of weakness, a sign of giving up, or an emotional retreat. But in reality, letting go is an act of profound strength. It is the moment you recognize that holding on is costing you more than releasing ever will. It is the moment you finally understand that not everything that comes with you is meant to continue with you. And when this realization arrives, you begin to see the subtle truth that shapes every evolving life. You grow not only by what you add, but by what you release. Letting go begins quietly. You notice a heaviness that never used to be there. You sense an inner resistance when you think about certain people, habits, or memories. Something inside you whispers that you are carrying too much. Perhaps it is a relationship that no longer aligns with your values, a pattern you repeat because it feels familiar, or a version of yourself you maintain because you fear who you might become without it. And yet, the moment you truly look inward, you realize that these things are not supporting you, they are limiting you. This awareness is the first step toward freedom. There is a powerful shift that happens when you stop fighting to hold on to what is already lost. You begin to understand that attachment is not the same as connection. Attachment is clinging to the past. Connection is living in truth. Many people stay trapped in cycles because they confuse loyalty with self-neglect. They stay in environments that shrink them. They protect relationships that drain them. They defend habits that quietly sabotage them. But when your awareness deepens, you start asking different questions. You ask whether this situation reflects your future or only reflects your past. You ask whether holding on is nurturing your growth or suffocating it. And each question becomes a doorway to clarity. Letting go requires honesty, the kind of honesty that strips away illusion. You must look at your life without filters, without excuses, without the comfortable stories you tell yourself to avoid discomfort. And in that honesty, you discover a truth that feels both painful and liberating. Not everything you love, desire, or hope for is meant to be part of your next chapter. Some people are lessons, not lifetimes. Some emotions are signals, not prisons. Some versions of you are stepping stones, not destinations. And when you finally accept this, you realize that letting go is not losing something, it is making space for something more aligned, more meaningful, more authentic. There is also a kind of quiet suffering that comes from holding on too long. You feel stuck, unbalanced, emotionally tangled. You sense yourself shrinking into roles that no longer fit you. And yet, the moment you release, even a little, you feel a lightness returning. You feel air where there was tension. You feel movement where everything felt stuck. And it is in this subtle shift that you understand the deeper purpose of letting go. It restores the natural flow of your life. Growth is not forced, it is allowed. And letting go is what opens the path for that allowance. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what was never meant to be your burden. It means you stop giving your energy to things that have already served their purpose. It means you respect yourself enough to choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and alignment over attachment. And with each release, no matter how small, you regain a sense of direction. You regain strength. You regain parts of yourself that you lost while trying to hold everything together. As you evolve, you realize that letting go is not a single moment, it is a continuous practice. You release old beliefs that limit your potential. You release fears that once held you in place. You release expectations that were never yours to meet. And with each release, your life becomes lighter, clearer, more intentional. You begin to recognize that growth is not about becoming someone new, it is about returning to who you were meant to be before you were shaped by everything you were afraid to let go of. And eventually, you discover the quiet beauty of letting go. It is the first step toward becoming the version of yourself you always knew lived within you, waiting for the space to finally breathe. And so, as your journey continues, remember this: awakening is not just seeing the world differently, it is choosing differently. It is understanding that your environment is part of your becoming. You cannot drink clear water from a muddy well. You cannot rise if you are surrounded by those who refuse to stand. In closing, let me tell you a secret. You do not avoid these people out of judgment, but out of compassion. Compassion for yourself and compassion for them. For one day, perhaps, they too will awaken. And when they do, they will understand what you understand now. That the path to truth often begins by walking away from what dims your inner light.